Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Bateman from DQ. Welcome to What It Takes to Make Your Digital Accessibility Program Vision a Reality with Mali Fernando and Preety Kumar. I'm going to take care of a few housekeeping items before handing it over to Mali and Preety. First, today's session is being recorded and will be hosted on demand for registrants. If you require live captions for today's session, you can access those in the video player. Lastly, Q&A is going to be handled a little bit differently for this session. If you could direct your questions to the ACTS Discord community following this live event, we'll do our best to address the questions there. With that, Preety and Mali, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ryan. And hello again, Mali. How are you doing? In sunny
Yeah,
London,
really good.
I'm assuming, right? So before we get started, I guess I wanted to say thank you very much to Mali, HSBC, and AbilityNet for their support in hosting an AXCon watch party in downtown London. And hello to many of you joining at HSBC, and hello to everyone else joining virtually around the world. So Mali, once again, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. The first question that comes to my mind is, can you tell us a little bit about HSBC's accessibility journey? How did it all start? And where are you? Are you where you plan to be?
Very good. And hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. I'm Mali. I head up digital experience and accessibility for HSBC across the world. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be here today and to be interviewed by none other than Preety herself. Thank you so much. Well, that's such a great question, right? And I think I'll take you right back to the beginning. I think, our journey has been an interesting one. It hasn't been easy. I remember in those early days, Preety, when I started talking about digital accessibility to HSBC, the questions I used to get were, what is digital accessibility? Why do we have to do this? Can somebody who's blind even use a smartphone? Can't we do the accessibility stuff later? And, as an organization, we are completely transformed and unrecognizable from the HSBC that we were in the not too distant past. And I think while we're very proud of the progress we've made, particularly with regards to digital accessibility, I think the thing that we take most pride in is the change in culture. Today, when I meet my colleagues from around the world, wherever they are, the questions they ask me are very, very different. Mali, how do we get this right? How do we make sure that every customer or staff member is able to use our systems, are able to come in and have a fulfilling career, are able to continue to bank with us? How do we become the best? How do we do the right thing by everyone? And I think the greatest pleasure I take is the change in hearts and minds, because the ones and zeros will follow if you get this, if you get the culture right within an organization. As with any good cause, our work will continue. But if you'd asked me some years ago, would we be the bank we are today? I would have never dreamt that we would have made quite so much progress. But of course, as with all things, we recognize that we have more to do, and we're only just getting started.
Mali, that story resonates with me a lot. When I started off in digital accessibility 25 years ago, the reactions were much the same that you are hearing, I guess, and you are changing the culture so that those questions don't come up anymore. That's really interesting how little changes over time, but you've done so much as a leader to make that transition and to really take your vision and make it into everyday action, into tactical action. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a very good question, Preety. So firstly, we start with a very clear, bold, and ambitious vision. We want to be the world's most digitally accessible bank, and to be really clear about what that means. We want to be the bank of choice for disabled, neurodivergent, and older customers. And we also want to be the employer of choice for that same group of people. Now, the role of both myself and my team is to translate that into very clear outcomes and actions for our people, right? We're a very large organization across 60 countries serving 40 million people. And of course, we have a variety of people in a variety of different roles. So I'll use one very simple example. If you're a communications professional, what does good accessibility mean to you? It means that we're using the right language when we're talking about disability, but it also means that if you are producing a piece of communications collateral, whether that's in paper form, in digital form, a social media post, you understand what it is you need to do to ensure the channel you're using is accessible to as many people as possible. So one of the things that we're doing is making sure that our people have the right skills within their specific job role to create the kind of organization that we want to be. So we have a training course for every type of digital professional, but also for those of our colleagues who influence good accessibility while they might not sit in a digital role. Last year, we trained 10,000 people across a variety of roles, across a number of countries. And of course, pairing up our training program with our awareness work is essential. So it's making sure our people have the right skills, but also understand the importance of getting this right in terms of our ability to either include a broader group of people or inadvertently, if they don't have the right skills, exclude someone. And in the context of my specific example, through a piece of communication. So, part of what we're doing is providing clarity in terms of what this means for you in your specific job. And the other part is, of course, equipping people with those skills. The other thing that we do, of course, is inspire this organization. I think, when I speak to people both within HSBC, whether it's a diversity and inclusion community, whether it's in the disability community, whether it's in the technology community, and of course, speaking to peers and other organizations, I think many organizations have aspirations in becoming better in this space. I think what we have to do within my team is prove to people that it can be done. If I look at a recent example of a program that we're particularly proud of, we launched a digital accessibility apprenticeship program specifically and exclusively for apprentices who were either neurodivergent or disabled. The program started mid-January. We've had 3 people join. And of course, if those apprentices complete the program successfully, all of them will be offered a job within HSBC and of course, within my own team.
Wow. So, Mali, I know you as a leader must be inspiring every day, and you do the perspiration to make the actions that you're talking about happen, including training 10,000 people. Wow. So I guess that begs the next question. How large is HSBC and how large is your team that you're able to have such a huge impact?
It's a really good question. Preety, so how large is HSBC? Look, we're 225,000 people across 60-something countries. I think it's 63 markets, if I got that right, serving 40 million people. So, we are significant. Now, if you'd asked me that question some years ago, how large is your team? I would have given you a rather modest number. But today, I'm going to answer that question quite differently. There isn't a part of HSBC, whether it's technology, of course, communications, marketing, procurement, recruitment, talent, HR, there really isn't a part of this organization that we aren't working with and influencing. We're even changing how it is we procure technology and the obligations of our partners, whether it's a fintech, a large digital organization, because ultimately, while it might be their platforms and systems, these are our customers and our people. So today, Preety, how I'm going to answer that question is, my team is 225,000 people because I have an entire organization backing me. And I think, for any sort of head of digital accessibility, I think that's the place where you want to get to, because the size of my team is amplified by the fact that I've got, the power of one of the world's largest international banks behind us. And really, there isn't a part of this organization that isn't doing its bit for disability inclusion.
Mali, listening to you, it's not just the 225,000 people that you're going to be impacting inside of HSBC to mobilize them for digital accessibility, but obviously you're looking into making sure your partners, your vendors, and your language in procurement holds people to the standard that you expect for accessibility is going to have a wonderful impact. So, and I know you started this whole initiative because you have a passion for it. That is very obvious. But I'm wondering, we see regulations across the world starting to look at digital accessibility as an imperative, as a human rights platform. I'm wondering, has regulation influenced your program, your plans, Mali?
Really good question. So, being a heavily regulated organization, we always want to be on the right side of regulation, right? We take our regulatory obligations extremely seriously. But as an organization, we made a decision some years ago that even in those markets where regulation doesn't exist, we're going to be accessible. So irrespective of whether regulation exists or not, you can expect a digitally accessible service from HSBC. And what that's translated into, it's translated into a couple of things. Firstly, we talk about, and of course, as you can expect, we benchmark ourselves against our competitors, across the world. And one of the things we did quite recently was in our top 13 personal banking markets, we looked at how good are we, right? How are we comparing against, our direct competitors? And I'm really proud to say in 11 of our top 13 most important personal banking markets, we found that we had the most digitally accessible banking website. And in the other two, we came second. We're working very hard to come first in those other two as well. But perhaps more importantly than being the most digitally accessible bank, because ultimately there's an inherent amount of subjectivity about being the best at something. In many parts of Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, we are arguably the only digitally accessible bank. And that's something we're both proud of, but we also take very seriously. It means that actually, if you have certain disabilities and you want to bank online, you may not have a choice except for HSBC. It means that in many parts of the world that we operate in, if you want independence and you expect your bank to work online and you expect to do all the things that somebody, whether in the personal banking space, in the commercial banking space, in the investment banking space, or you simply want to apply for a job online, your disability isn't a barrier. In many of those countries, there's no regulatory obligation to do that. The second thing is, as with all customers, disabled or able-bodied, we want our digital accessibility to be a reason for those people to choose HSBC. We want to give a best-in-class experience. So we're looking well beyond compliance, which is why we work with disabled, neurodivergent, and older customers. When we're doing digital, we make sure they're part of design. We make sure we're consulting this group of our society, and we make sure they're involved right the way from inception to launch. So for us, regulatory obligations are great. We welcome a greater amount of regulation, because ultimately, I think when it comes to something like banking, people should have more choice than just HSBC.
Mali, that is very inspiring, really, because when you think about banking, it is an essential service, obviously, but the reach that you have across the world, across the different markets, where, like you said, HSBC may be the only banking choice for people. And for people with disabilities, it is actually not a matter of just convenience. It is essential for their being able to have that access to your financial services. And as a customer since 2011, that really warms my heart. Now, besides becoming number one in those two markets where you are number two in digital accessibility, what other big opportunities do you see for your program? What is the biggest opportunity for your program?
Very good. For us, I think the biggest opportunity is to inspire others. We have, as an organization of our size, we have both the ability and the motivation to really make a difference. So, we're looking beyond just our customers and our people. We're talking about digital accessibility in parts of the world where the concept of disability inclusion, much less good digital accessibility is a completely foreign concept. And what we're trying to do is really use our brand, the significance of our visibility, to start changing the narrative. You know, when I'm out in Asia and I'm speaking to our colleagues, when I'm speaking to our customers, when I'm speaking to potential employees, they love the work we're doing. It's about creating, you know, a level playing field. It's about making sure that actually everybody is able to be at their best, whether it's, you know, a personal banking customer or a business owner who simply wants a bank that works for them, or a potential employee who has a dream of joining HSBC and having an international career in banking. So for us, I think the real opportunity is about really moving the needle in parts of the world where the concept of good digital accessibility just isn't a thing. And we're doing that out in places like Asia. We're giving away our expertise. We're helping other companies. It's not something we talk about. It's not something, you know, that's in the press. It's not something you'll find in a LinkedIn post or in one of our sort of regulatory documents, but it's something that we're doing day in, day out, giving away our expertise, because ultimately our people are part of those communities, and they want to make a difference in those countries that not only are we a business offering banking services, but they want to make sure that actually, you know, they are making a contribution to their communities as individuals, leveraging, you know, the size and potential that a brand like HSBC can bring.
You know, Mali, it is actually sometimes when you don't beat your own drum and you're doing it in as authentic a way as you do, the world starts to beat your drum. So I am sure you're going to make a big impact. Now, you know, I heard you talking about going out there and talking to people, talking to your customers. And I, for one, really get so much inspiration as well as firsthand knowledge by talking to my customers. And when I hear their challenges and their triumphs, that story always makes me want to get out of bed. Is there a story, you know, a customer story that really hit home with you that you can share with us?
There absolutely is. There absolutely is. Look, one of the first times we made an online banking application accessible, I remember, look, it felt like a Herculean task. You know, we didn't have the capability, the skill set, the knowledge within the organization that we do today. So when we did it, you know, we were really proud. And I remember one of the first pieces of feedback that we got said simply, for the first time, my wife, who is blind, can use her online banking without my help. Kudos HSBC, we will be customers for life. And Preety, that sums it up. That sums it up. You know, that's everything that, you know, we want to do. We want to provide inclusive banking. We want to provide independence. We recognize that, you know, ultimately we help people manage their money. And, you know, we understand that actually that could either be a positive thing if we get it right. And of course, the seriousness of not getting it right. It means that actually we have the ability to facilitate broader independence. And, you know, I take that story with me because I know there are so many people, many of our customers who rely on HSBC and their ability to bank with us online. And of course, look, that's a retail customer. But of course, we have commercial banking customers. We have, you know, wholesale solutions. And what we're doing, of course, is by making sure our corporate solutions are accessible, we are in effect making another organization accessible because they've chosen HSBC. And we don't differentiate. I know some other banks do differentiate in terms of where they choose to put their accessibility efforts. And a lot of banks choose to make a narrow slice of their personal banking offering accessible. My ask to them, and what I'd encourage them to do is, don't just make your personal banking accessible. Make all of it accessible because, you know, there are investment bankers out there who are disabled and they want to use your systems. And actually, the accessibility of your system could be the difference between them being able to come in and do their job or not.
You know, independence as consumers, independence as businesses, independence is such an important core human right? So I actually really, that resonates. And I guess that customer story, that one little incident it has stuck with you for a long time. Now, I don't know if this is the right question, okay, Mali, but I wonder, was there some transform moment or a series of moments when you actually realized, you know what I'm doing here, my accessibility program at HSBC is on the right track. We are doing the right thing, and we've started to make that progress that I wanted to make.
There absolutely is, Preety. And I'll use another customer story. So,
yeah.
I was in Hong Kong some years ago, and I met a customer. He happened to be blind, and he was very excited to meet me, right? And he's like, "Oh, so you're in charge of customer experience and accessibility at HSBC?" And I wasn't entirely sure what he was going to say. He's a local celebrity out in Hong Kong, so I was both excited to meet him, but slightly anxious because I didn't know where this customer was coming from and what he had to say. The first thing he said to me is, "Mali, I'm a fan of HSBC's," and I was taken aback. That's what every brand wants, right? We want customers who are loyal, but a fan of HSBC, that's quite strong. He's like, "Yes, Mali. Well, and we were in front of 300 people. He's like, "Mali, I want to do a demo of Pay Me," and I was like, I looked at my team and I was like, I don't know who this gentleman is. He wants to do a live demo in front of 300 people. We've got some really senior people in the room. And I was just like, we'll find another time to do a demo. He wasn't going to be stopped. He did his demo anyway, right? And it was like magic. And I later found out, and I've got to know this gentleman very well. He uses our everyday banking app, to do his payments, check his balances, all that sort of good stuff that you expect. He uses our investment app, something called Hong Kong Easy Invest, right? So one of the things we launched some years ago was the concept of sonification. You can run your finger over a graph and it'll tell you either through the concept of pitch, either high or low, how a stock is doing. I think we did that a few years before Apple, which in itself is incredible. And then he also happens to be a business owner. So he uses our commercial banking app to manage his business. And for me, that was a moment when I just went, we are really making a difference. If this gentleman's an example of other customers, his entire life, whether it's his personal banking or his day-to-day job, he's able to do. And he said, Mali, he said something really funny. He's like, "Mali, I want you guys to get out there and start talking about this. I don't think you're talking enough about the work you're doing because you're the biggest bank in Hong Kong. If you guys take a position of leadership and tell the community this is important, other people will follow." And I've taken his advice. We're going to start talking more about the work that we do, if for nothing else, to inspire other organizations to follow our lead.
I'll add to your story, Mali. So I was in Dubai recently, and I met a blind artist from India who also banks with your bank. So thank you for doing everything that you do for consumers and for businesses. Now, she is a small business owner, by the way, as a blind artist. As I listen to you, I feel like you've got a really 360-degree view of your program of digital accessibility as a whole. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your accessibility community building activities. And as you know, AXCON is all about community building. It's something very near and dear to DQ's heart and my heart from 25 years ago. So please tell me what you're doing to do community building in your program and for accessibility, because I think it'll make a big difference.
Of course. Look, we want to go beyond our customers and our staff. We want to help the world around us. So, I'll talk about 3 or 4 things that we've done. The first is what we're calling our Train 1000 initiative. And it's giving away our digital accessibility training. So we're going to make it an annual program where we train 1,000 people outside of HSBC in digital accessibility. And when we launched it last year, I expected, small companies to sign up. I didn't expect, the Australian government to come on board for training. I didn't expect the NHS to request training. I didn't expect the Hong Kong Stock Exchange to request training. So, we've had over 100 companies sign up, and our first batch of 1,000 will be done in April this year, and we're just going to keep rolling that out. So that's something which we're helping large and small, because I think we have the ability to get the message out there, and we're giving away the same training we've given our people. Last week we made the Digital Accessibility Hub available, and the Accessibility Hub is quite an interesting thing. We looked at a few years ago what are the most common mistakes that we as an organization made. And then we built a story and created a story of a woman called Rachel as she goes through the process of online dating. But Rachel has MS. And while our training is very sort of technical in nature, this is very much about driving awareness of disability and the power of technology to be, to provide so much inclusivity in terms of, your life day to day. Some of the other things we're doing, and some of these are close to my heart personally, we're getting involved with schools. So we're working with a partner called Microlink, and we're piloting a program to get into 100 schools in the UK and give them awareness of both disability, but also knowledge of assistive technology. When I speak to, colleagues in the bank, particularly those colleagues who are neurodivergent, they went through primary, secondary, and sometimes tertiary education without knowing that they were, neurodiverse. And as a result, academia didn't really help them. They've struggled with academia, and the impact that has had on their life more broadly in terms of employment opportunities, how they see themselves, how society sees themselves. So actually starting off by helping schools, headmasters, teachers get this right, and helping students through our partnership with Microlink is something we're really, really excited about. Last but not least, and look, this element of our discussion, I could continue for a while, but I'll finish with one other, is our apprenticeship program. We want to live our values. We want a more diverse workforce, and I want my team to be as diverse as it possibly can be, because of course, how do we serve our 40 million customers? We're as diverse as it gets within HSBC if we don't understand them, and we need to make sure that the customers we're serving are represented in teams like myself, particularly teams that have a global remit, in terms of how we influence, technology across the world. So, our apprenticeship program is really unique. And I'll be honest, Preety, there wasn't a playbook to learn from. There wasn't a manual to go, okay, how do you create a digital accessibility apprenticeship program specifically for people who are disabled and neurodivergent? There wasn't another organization to learn from. So look, we made a lot of mistakes. We learned a lot, the legality, what are we allowed to do? How do we recruit? How do we make this a fair process? Who are our apprenticeship partners? Is their sort of training process accessible? Actually, how do we make it accessible so that actually our apprentices are able to get the most out of this? And again, my offer to everybody watching this is, you want to learn from us and replicate this, get in touch. I'd love to see other organizations run their own apprenticeship program. And it doesn't have to be in digital accessibility. It could be in accounting. It could be in law. It could be in manufacturing. We'd love to help you. We'd love for you to learn from our mistakes, and we'll give you all the knowledge that we've come up with, over the last 12 to 18 months as we designed this program. We'd be thrilled. We'd be thrilled to share that with you guys. Guys, excuse me, I'm just going to get the light going. Just give me 1 second.
All right. Jumping jacks here. No, this is great, Mali. Well, you've said so many important things here, but let me ask you this, because, starting early in educating and making people aware that there's no stigma with any kind of a disability, neurodivergence, or anything else. And then continuing to give those apprenticeships and those opportunities at HSBC. Now, you've done a lot, and you said you didn't have a playbook. I'm sure, failure teaches us all, and we have learned through our failures, but I'm wondering, other leaders like you who are beginning this journey of accessibility, or are simply looking to get reinvigorated or energized, are there things that you can share with them that would perhaps help them? You know,
Of course,
everybody's
of
going to
course.
have to make their own mistakes, but anything that you can actually share, because I think people would look at you and say, wow, if I could only accomplish an iota of what you've accomplished, right? So,
Oh, that's very kind, Preety. That's very kind. I mean, the first thing I'd say is go speak to Preety and DQ, right? Because
thank you.
we feel the same way about you guys, what you guys are doing, and the impact you're having in your community. But also, very seriously, come speak to us, right? There's no joy like giving our knowledge away. I've got some deep experts, and they love geeking out on the nuances of digital accessibility, right? Lunch day was a very fun conversation on the finer details of WCAG 2.2. And it's great. Look, we'd love to share expertise, come speak to us. But if I had to offer some advice to, other individuals who are trying to start their accessibility program, I'd say it's three things. There's typically three barriers to most organizations getting this right. First, they create the right culture. Without the right culture, you're going to be fighting this. You're going to be fighting this constantly. We are by no means perfect, but you know what? The number of difficult conversations I have to have, if I think about my typical week today, as opposed to, some years in the not too distant past, I very rarely have to persuade people that actually good disability inclusion is something that we need to do. So get the culture right. Everything else will follow. The second is make sure you have the right expertise. Chances are, irrespective of where your organization is in its own journey, I quite often come across, what I call enthusiastic amateurs, people who absolutely want to do the right thing, but actually do not have the skills to get to the outcome that they need. So make sure you have the right knowledge, whether it's signing up for HSBC's training program, but of course, look, there are some amazing partners out there, right? People who can teach you about good, disability inclusion, good digital accessibility. Bring in people who are themselves disabled, right? If you don't have examples of that in your workforce, bring them in, right? Invite them in, have them sit down with your team, because that's the only way you're going to kind of teach people. And then third, invest in this space, right? Disability inclusion is very different to other parts of diversity and inclusion. The reality is that disability inclusion and digital accessibility require actual investment. I think there are certain parts of diversity and inclusion that do not require the level of investment that digital accessibility and disability inclusion do. But this requires a level of investment, whether it's making your digital offering accessible, whether it's making your physical spaces accessible, particularly if you've inherited a physical space that hadn't considered accessibility in mind, you're going to be retrofitting that stuff in, right? And hopefully in the future, you're thinking about it ahead of time. But that would be my advice. Get your culture right, make sure you've got the right knowledge and skills, and then you've got to invest in this space. And ultimately, guys, look, the thing about good digital accessibility is you can't fudge it. I speak to a lot of leaders, and you can, to a degree, in other parts of diversity and inclusion, get away with those promises and those sweet nothings, as I like to call them, right? We have a commitment to ethnicity. We have a commitment to the gender discussion. Digital accessibility, in some ways, is quite binary. If you're saying you believe in good disability inclusion, but somebody can't use your website, somebody can't apply for a job, somebody can't transact with you, all those commitments and promises that you've made are meaningless. So, this is one of those things you have to get right. And, that would be my advice to anybody starting their own journey.
It's where the rubber meets the code, right, Mali?
Indeed.
So, can't fake it till you make
Can't fake it.
You have to, right, exactly. That's great. So, I mean, and I think you've touched upon three very important things. The culture, because change is hard, and digital accessibility transformations involve a lot of change that you've outlined. Culture is key. And I think you stay on it every single day from what I can see. Now, expertise, you're actually sharing your expertise with the world, and there are others very willing to do the same. So thank you for that. I think the digital accessibility hub or the accessibility hub that you were talking about is available and being adopted by people across the world. So you're making a difference not only in the realm of HSBC, but way beyond that. And I think people should aware of that. Program leaders out there at AXCON watching Mali, please know that he's making that available. And I think you hit upon the biggest thing that people struggle with, which is the investment in the space. And I find it really interesting because we take it for granted with other things that there will be upfront investment and then you can make it business as usual, right? But you have pointed out that it's more difficult to do in our space of digital accessibility or accessibility. And, you know, I guess having really attacked all those three important elements and having come to a place where you've obviously got the buy-in from top executives, your peers, that this is an important initiative. I wonder, with everything that you've got, all the energy that you bring to this, what's next for you and what's next for the HSBC Digital Accessibility Program? I guess it's one and the same considering how much you pour into it, but please.
You know, Preety, we're just getting started. We're just getting started. You know, I'm amazed at the progress that we've made as an organization. And, you know, I'm grateful to not just my fantastic team, you know, the enthusiasm and the excitement and the commitment is incredible. And we are more excited and passionate about this topic than we've ever been. I think for us, you know, looking ahead, the opportunity really is leaving our mark on society. I want organizations, particularly in Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, to look to HSBC as a leader, as people they can come to learn, whether it's, you know, making their own digital offering accessible, but also other parts of the disability agenda. But I think, you know, looking ahead, where do I want us to get to? I want people to think HSBC when they think disability. You know, if you want a bank account, if you want a job and you have a disability and you go, you know what, I don't know if I can get into a big bank. I want you to know that actually, if you apply for a job at HSBC, we're going to see your potential. We're not going to see what some other organizations might see, which is your disability. And we're going to give you a fair chance, and we're going to give you you know, every opportunity to succeed within this organization. I want us to become synonymous with inclusion, and I want that to be a reason why customers choose us and employees choose to work for us.
Fantastic. Mali, Preety, thank you so much for a fantastic session. Some might even say it was lights out, pun intended. If you'd like to continue this conversation with fellow attendees, please head over to the Discord community. Thank you all so much for attending.
Thank you, Mali, and thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy AXCON.